not the type of day any of us Dolphins fans hope for. 48-20. Not happy times. Clearly not happy times. But I've been watching Twitterverse now as I watch the game, and the Twitterverse was going crazy. There was so many hyperbolic takes after last week's victory, and then the pendulum swung the yin to the yang, hyperbolic in the other direction. There was some good stuff. I always learn, but there was a lot I thought bad or knee-jerk reaction takes. And so, I'm going to cover the Dolphins here, just the Dolphins. Bills viewers, guys, I want to say congratulations. You played an excellent game from the staff to the players. Everything was really exceptional. Congratulations. I'm going to give you guys your own Bills podcast because I just can't do the schizophrenic, trying to be eval on both guys and I get confused. I just need to dial in because I'm still emotional. And I think it's best to dedicate to each fan base. So this will be just for the Bills, but I'll give you guys your stuff next. Now, Bills and Dolphins fans, this was one game. The Dolphins going up to the house of the defending AFC East champions, Bills. Tough team. The win is permanent in the record column for the season. The tiebreaker is in the record column. That's permanent. And sadly, I really do feel bad for Tre'Davious White. What I saw was so heartbreaking. That was one of the most dramatic and empathic moments I've seen from a player getting injured. I felt terrible for him and for you guys. So I pray somehow that works out. And then there's my man Teron walking off with the grimacing on his face that I've never seen before. I'm a little concerned for him too. I think it was very clear with White that it's a season thing. Teron, I don't know, but I don't feel good about that. So the loss, the tiebreaker, and the two injuries are the only permanent things. The season will go on and anything can happen. So we can't write the narrative of either team after this. But it was a phenomenal win for the Bills. They showed a ton. They showed balance on offense, which is critical, as we should have realized from last week. The Dolphins took a beating. But they're going to move on to, and this Week 18 game down the road is going to play critical. And we can't just say, Dolphins suck, because that's not the case. Now, there's problems, and we got to get into a fair evaluation, a non-hyperbolic evaluation. It's not, we're the greatest if the Broncos win. Now we're the worst ever, and everybody sucks. This is how the media plays you. They beat you on the way up and get you as high as they can. And when you go down, and they beat you on the way down. So I'm going to try to give a very even keel, honest, and I think now some of the stuff I've been saying looks pretty accurate, take on what happened through the game and what's the fallout for the Dolphins. Again, Bills fans, I'll cover you after this because my brain's burning right now. So the main parts that I'm going to hit is the offensive line. There was a lot of takes in the Twitterverse and in some comments I've seen that, Connor being out's no big deal, and our offensive line's tremendous. I saw some people, saying in the Twitterverse, like, if we lose today, it's not going to be because of the offensive line. And then after the game's over, people are like, well, the offensive line didn't play too good. But what about the next part is Fangio? Does Fangio suck? Does Fangio suck? That's going to be the talk now. Is McDaniel the same as last year? Does Tua really only throw to guys that are open? It's going to get crazy. So I'm going to cover the offensive line and give you some real truth about that. Truth. It's verified, I think, today. Only thing is we don't know about Teron. And then I'm going to give you the truth about Fangio because you're going to hear a lot of stuff. And it's not accurate if it's, does Fangio suck? Okay, that's not accurate. That's like a low accuracy rating eval. So, in my opinion. So, I'm going to go over those two things. Ramifications of the Teron injury. Tua, McD, and Hill's knee injury. Savvy, that's what it's going to be on the menu for today, guys. I'm very worked up, but I'm really going to try to be accurate here and even keeled. Okay, so first thing I got to do, I think the most important one is, does Fangio suck or not? But I'm going to get into that second because the table for this game was set what you should know by now. The offensive line, it makes the NFL world go around. That's what I keep saying over and over and over again. I guess Connor's a little better and more important than many people might think. Low snaps by Eichenberg. Yes, Connor snaps are all over the place. But other than that, Connor is like the stars compared to like the cellar of Eichenberg as far as physical performance. And it's not just that, guys. It's also ties into McDaniel. I'll get into later. Because Connor's not in there, the menu, the areas where he can attack for victory is very limited with Eichenberg versus Connor. It's got to be pretty clear by now. We'll go through, and anybody who says Eichenberg did pretty good, it might be crazy because Eichenberg got my man injured, getting blown up. In what I said, power. He's susceptible to strength and power. He is Dieter 2.0. Maybe even a little worse. Okay? So this offensive line came into this game without its center. And while the center fires inaccurately sometimes like a shotgun, his ability to go left and right at the second level, his ability to go move at the point of attack and then open that stuff up and to pass block alone, to let help go down the line of scrimmage is critical to all the things this team does. And it became more critical because McDermott had a brilliant job. I didn't understand why people haven't done this. Belichick did it last year a little bit, where we like this bunch look. Okay, you bring guys up and then you jam the small receivers off the line of scrimmage, throws them off the route, and it delays the release. So when they do that, though, you have to be able to run to break that. If they're getting in close, yeah, you get the free release, but the consistency part is getting that a running game inside and then the play action. So they're coming up and then they're going for the run and then you get the free release. And that's how you get, but we couldn't run successfully enough. Now you might look at the stats and see A-Chain ran for 100 yards. It was at the end of the game. He got like 80% of his yards. It doesn't mean he sucks. The blocking wasn't there. It was 15 rushes to our 7. They had 65 and we had like 20 by the first half. And then the game was over. We weren't able to run effectively. And it started with Connor. Now, if Connor was in there, and then it got exasperated when Tehran went down, it don't look good. Eichenberg was just, exploded, just falling to his knees, driven down, and then the player hit Tehran in the back of the leg. What more do you need to see from Eichenberg? And now this begs a serious question I'm going to get to in a second. But this offensive line, without Connor blocking alone and getting to the second level and allowing you to attack left and right, meant that Jackson was blocking on his own to help protect Eichenberg. Exactly like I said was going to happen. And Jackson was beat. And Wynn was beat too. Inside, he was blown up multiple times. I said they struggle with power. And we didn't see it through the first 3 weeks because you had a thin defense with Staley, and Staley called a full retard game plan. And then Bill didn't have an offensive line, and he didn't have this deep defensive group, and he played deep coverage so he get the ball off in half a second. And then the following week played the Broncos with Vance Joseph, who doesn't know what he's really doing for on the macro level, on the grand scale, and they have lacked talent. Now, it doesn't mean we suck, but it's the matchups create stuff. And so here we are. McDaniel was handcuffed without Connor in there. And you could see early on he was going into the playbook faster and faster and faster to get these, exotic plays. They hit the edge and all this other stuff. And it was all helter-skelter. And it got quicker and quicker where the Bills kind of like ran a general basic playbook for a while until they started digging into the playbook. It's because their offensive line was dominating. Now, it doesn't mean our D sucks either, and I'll get to that in a second. So, Eichenberg paired next to Wynn, 2 weak players. They can't handle power. Eichenberg's totally destroyed by it. Wynn struggles with it, and then Jackson does as well. So, we really couldn't run the football. But Hunt had some great blocks early on. Tehran was holding his business. But then when Tehran went down, Lamb can't run block. Wynn can't run block. Eichenberg can't run block. And Jackson can't run block. And then we became one-dimensional. And there was this lack of balance, this lack of ability to attack different areas of the field. And you could see even as time went on, they felt more and more comfortable and were able to start getting the pressure in there. And so this offensive line, without Connor and without Teron, isn't that good. But our skill talent can still make hay. If you took Teron out and you took Connor out, we probably could have beat the Broncos last week. But not against top shelf team with an offense and a defense. And so we're going to have to work on things. We have to see if Teron gets back. You got to get Connor back soon too. But it does beg the question that I've been asking for a while. How do you get rid of Feeney and then you keep Eichenberg as your primary backup? Because guys, listen, you had Teron, who's your starter. You had Wynn, who you pegged as your starter. You have Hunt, is who you pegged as your starter. And Jackson is who you pegged as your starter. All you had was your backup center. I mean, when we played the Patriots, they didn't have their starting left or right tackle. They lost their starting right guard halfway through the game. And their starting left guard was injured and played poorly. And they still made something out of it. So we really were only down one guy, and you could feel it kind of crumbling early. And so these are weird choices that we decide to bank on Eichenberg. And it was terrible luck that Connor got hurt. But this is questionable. And the offensive line will be how high we go. It's going to set the table for everything. So we got to see what happens with Teron. We can bounce back. We could still beat most of the teams in the league, but it's not about that. We are on a course for greatness. And so what do we do against the better teams that can get after the quarterback, have a good front and secondary, and then can put points on? That's going to be the question. Mick D, I did think, did an admirable job. Ace Per Head's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. So there's that. We'll get into it later. I'll show all the video. I mean, if you had to see it, even though the Twitterverse kind of buried their grandiose takes on the offensive line. Now, the thing that they're going to use to kind of like not talk about the O-line is, does Fangio suck? Does he suck? Well, 48 points, Fangio must suck. Now, you have to understand, Fangio runs a pass-first defense. Kohu's not meant to play boundary. I said it last year. I said, this guy's a good cornerback. He can play zones. You got to give him certain areas, but it's mid to late clock where he struggles. You cannot put Kohu against Diggs and expect it to win. But that wasn't what's supposed to be there. It was supposed to be Ramsey. And then Needham was supposed to come and add to us. And then we drafted Cam Smith. So Fangio's already working with one hand tied behind his back. And then the next thing is, why didn't Fangio put X on Diggs? Because have you watched X cover? He hasn't been doing good. He's made some big plays to cover up. Something is wrong. I don't know what it is, but it hasn't been phenomenal. And he probably would have been disassembled, and then you would have had to move guys. Well, he's got to follow him around. Then you got to change your whole defense and your whole game plan. The whole idea of Fangio's defense is, we're going to move guys around and confuse you, but this is what we do. This is how, whatever you say, this is how Fangio calls his defense. You can't have X following it around, because then all of a sudden they could put you in motion and they know if you're playing man or not. Maybe you could put him on man and then you had everybody else zone around, but then it starts altering things. And then you got guys like Brandon Jones coming in his first real action, Kelvin Joseph, Bethel. These guys are not starters on most teams. And then Cam Smith is still a rookie. He still hasn't found his way, but you're waiting for Ramsey and you're waiting for Needham. Fangio needs, if you go look at all his defenses, they were always stocked secondaries. Didn't have to be the best guys, but guys you could trust, guys that, you could put out his nickel and put out his dime. You could bring guys in and out, bunch of guys that were solid to good, and he could trust, and he doesn't really have that. But you could add the missed tackles. You blame Fangio for that, but, missed tackles is on the player. Fangio doesn't always have missed tackles. There were loads of missed tackles, even from guys like Holland. And so it is so easy to say, hey, Fangio, he sucks. But now he's had success before, but now he comes here and he sucks. And this is ridiculous. If you gave him the 2018, 2019 Bears defense today, it would have looked different. If you gave him his Broncos defense the first year, maybe the second year he was here, it would have looked different. You had Phillips out. You had some mistakes by the linebackers. And Bethel got victimized. But Kohu's not supposed to be there. And so you got to understand, it's about horses. NFL is a game about horses. I said that in my last podcast. I said, you can call a perfect scheme. You can call perfect calls. But if you got a guy who's better than your guy, you're going to lose more often than not because talent separates it all. Fangio, he stopped the run when he needed to. He'd bring the three guys up, but when he bring the three D linemen up, then it exposes back end, and he has to play very, very careful or else he gets exposed. And so is Fangio perfect? Well, he was doing pretty good. Remember when we were going back and forth and he called some nice blitzes and dialed up and called the stops? And then we crapped out with some fumbles and then our offensive line broke down. Then Tehran went down and then the floodgates opened. And so the talk about Fangio sucking is ridiculous. Give the guy 2 or 3 years. Give him the talent. He's got talent based for a Flores-style defense. And he's got to make do with it. And he's got injuries, and he's got guys that aren't really up to the snuff and playing out of their position and guys that really shouldn't be starting. So I disagree totally with Fangio sucks. It really comes down, this is an offensive-driven team. Fangio is supposed to be there to dial up some plays, to like the Bolts game or the Pats game, to dial up those plays at the right moment, to let our offense get ahead, but they couldn't because they couldn't play their game because they were down their center and other guys were taking too much help. And so Tua doesn't suck either. This is not, did Tua suck in 2021 when he had the 45th best offensive line in football? No. Then he did good the next year because he got Connor and then he got, what's his name? Shell at the right side, and he had Tehran for most of the season. His offensive line was doing pretty good. And so all of a sudden he did better because he had, Hill and Waddle. So that set the table for the success. And then he was pretty, played some poor teams, but now this offensive line's breaking down, which sets the consistency. Teams are going to catch up to you. Okay, so you get the ball out quick. Let's get the guys at the line of scrimmage. Let's knock them off the ball, and let's see if you can block. And we couldn't. Let's see if you can run the football. We really couldn't with any consistency. And yes, Tua made a bad pass over the middle, and Mostert dropped the football. But that is like post facto compared to the offensive line. So I didn't like the 2-point conversion. I didn't like going for a 4th and 1, but it was so far out of reach. We weren't going to take it there, guys. So, I thought McDaniel did a good job. I thought Fangio did the best with what he could. But this started with Connor not being in. And then it moved up to Tehran going down. It was a game up to that point. And then we made mistakes with those turnovers, the fumbling of the football and not keeping pace. And that's really what it's all about. If Tehran comes back at some point, we get Connor back at some point, even Lamb's over there, we're going to keep going and see how this thing plays out. Fangio, if he has, get Ramsey in here, Needham and Smith gets better, and you get Elliott. Deshaun Elliott was out. That's another thing. Deshaun Elliott was out. So we got to understand what it is, but it's got to start with the questionable decisions to put Fangio in this critical season without the personnel to run his defense. Okay, I like that he's in here, but he doesn't necessarily have the tools to do what he wants to do. And then the questionable decisions on this offensive line. Jackson is not good at right tackle, and it's going to get exposed more and more as long as Tehran's not here and Connor's not here. And to get rid of Feeney and not have like really good backup center, Eichenberg is terrible. So you got to start with that. It doesn't mean we're dead. It doesn't mean Chris Greer's an idiot. But we got to let this evaluation play out, guys. There's plenty of football left. I think we're going to continue to be in this thing. You just, it's getting a little bit harder now if Tehran goes down and however long it takes for Connor to turn, because that is where it all begins on the offensive line. So you got to have hope. McDaniel's a good coach. Fangio's a good coach. They got some talent issues, some injury issues, and they went against a tough team that did everything right. So don't hang your head in the ground. We've got the Giants and we got the Panthers up next. Those are 2 wins. We still will probably be 5-1 after 6. And then let's see what happens with Tehran. Let's see what happens with Connor. Let's see what adjustments we can make. There's a team that still is going to do well, but it's not going to be always perfect. I said, we got to see what happens when we get punched in the face. McDaniel and this team got punched in the face. Let's see how we respond. Stay positive. Keep the evaluation going. Anyway, Curtis saying, thanks for stopping by. Believe, guys, this is a lot to be happy about, but it's going to be a dogfight. Curtis saying, catch you next time. Be well. Go Fins. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.